Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons, back with one of these critique videos for you guys. So it's not really a reaction, it's not an analysis because I'm not going into quite as much detail as I could. It's somewhere in between an informal analysis, a critique. As a disclaimer, I will pause, I will talk about stuff. I didn't think it was necessary to say this, but some of the reactions and comments I got from the previous videos I've done, I'm just saying at the start. If you just want to watch the video, just watch it without someone speaking. This isn't the one for you. I'm going to try and find things and information from it. The reason for that is that these videos accompany my signature licks videos, so I've picked out some licks of Zakk Wylde, so you can check out with the eye up there. The process I go through to find these licks is like watching lots of kind of content and videos, like live licks, studio solos, all that kind of thing. So this is me documenting some of it, and the ideas that pop up I can't always make a full video on, so I'll put them in a section here called Licks, Ideas and Concepts. If you like this, hit like, leave a comment, that'd be great. If you dislike it, feel free to hit dislike. If you let me know specifically what you don't like, I can take it on board, I can try and amend these videos as I go. Far too much talking, I do apologise. Just setting the scene for the video here. This one's from Emgtv. I watched one of these on Mark Friedman, which you can check out with the eye up there, that I really enjoyed, so hopefully this one will be pretty good too. Yeah, Zakk Wylde, let's go for it. This is an oddly cinematic start to a guitar video from Emgtv here. Alright, what's cool about this from the get-go is I can hear very clearly the rhythms pan to here and the leads pan to this speaker. So did make that sense to you. The rhythm's on the left, the leads on the right, so it's going to be easy to hear what's going on, which is great for me. It's entirely possible I've seen this video before, but if I have done, it's a long time ago. The reason this comes into mind is you see how there's a huge Marshall behind him. There isn't a microphone in front of that, but there's a tiny little Marshall there that is mic'd up. So I suspect he might be playing his guitar through that tiny little Marshall because it's mic'd up. Well, we'll find out. The tone from that I would suspect would be a bit questionable. So his playing's kicking ass so far. It's that kind of pentatonic just stuff you'd expect from Zakk Wylde. The tone is a wee bit questionable here. There's a lot of some sort of modulation on it, maybe like a chorus or some sort of doubling thing, which would lead me to believe it might be that tiny little amp that he is using. Not to say that small amps are necessarily bad, but they'll often have a kind of tinnier, thinner quality to them. But if he's able to play as well as he was in the intro there through that amp, kudos to him, because it's going to be really difficult to do stuff like that. Yep. Let's go. Two things spring to mind here. The first one is it's great for a Les Paul player. He changes his pickups an awful lot because it's not in the most convenient place when the pickup selector is kind of up on the body there. So a lot of the time people are just going to leave it in one position and just going to do that, but you get a lot more of a tonal shift when you move between them. He must be a huge guy because he's making that guitar look like it's a kid's toy, isn't he? And that would explain why he gets those big massive bends in vibrato. I've never really paid attention to why that might be before, because I suppose he tunes down as well, so there's less tension on the strings, it's easier to bend them. But yeah. So there he flipped the picks up selector and then flipped it back again before he's going for another shred run. It looks like he's picking what we call a downward pick slanting, or Troy Grady would upward escape strokes. You can find out what I mean by that with the eye up there, so I don't derail this too much. But kind of holding the pick in a downward way so you can kind of go through the strings a bit more easily using pentatonics. It works really well with 2-note per string scales because the pick just stays in the same orientation. It's not a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing. It's just a technique you can use, and he seems to sort of pick almost from his elbow more, so you're going to get kind of probably more attack from that as well. I might be wrong here. Let's have a better look. Yeah, you can see there his hand's kind of stuck in this position. It looks like it's kind of going more from the elbow. That was some great clear picking there. So if he is using this little amp more power to him. I really want to see if there's a... No, because the input there, there's not just the on. Yeah, there's nothing going into the input of this big amp that's behind him, it's just on for show. So I suspect he probably had that too loud. The people at Emgtv were like, turn down, or you can use the little amp, and he was probably like, fine, I can use the little amp, but I'm still going to play like a badass. There's a real ferocity to his picking when he's doing that kind of stuff there, when he's doing the fast lines. It's maybe not dissimilar to someone like Gary Moore, where they kind of just go for it and there's a real fire. It's sometimes at the cost of clarity. Like if you compare it to someone like Paul Gilbert, you can check out what I'm referring to with the eye up there. I looked at one of his videos where the pristineness of his playing is just ridiculous. But you can, the flip side to that is it doesn't have that same fire, maybe doesn't have that same passion. So I suppose it's a blend of what you're looking for, what aesthetic you prefer. It's not a knock on him. I think this is sounding great. I think it's fitting the vibe perfectly. As I say, I'm not a huge fan of the tone. What he's playing, his note choice and stuff, how he's articulating them. Great job. That vibrato was brilliant, isn't it? Man. I foolishly paused over a really interesting line he did there. I might go back and rewatch that. It was a minute in, okay. Bit of pick tapping going on. It's a bit like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and you get the feeling that like when he's playing, he's really playing, like he's really putting himself into it. It's interesting because it's an approach I used to really not take at all. I used to play as lightly as I possibly could, and then found out you can kind of get, I would say like a better sound, but sort of particularly for recording if you have less gain and you kind of hit things harder. And then I've probably done that too much, so I'm on the flip side now of trying to sort of clean my tone and sound up a bit more and make myself pick a bit more pristinely. But this is like a good argument as to why it's good to just kind of hit it and get that kind of passion and fury, I suppose. I was thinking where he played a really nice melodic line there when it was going over the backing track, and it was working really, really well. And he went to something there that, to my ears, wasn't as good as what he did before. Not to knock the man, though. Ferocious, that's the only word for it. There's something that's really worthwhile pointing out there though, when he was playing that kind of kind of going through the scale, you'll notice at one point like his picking technique's different. Then it's like he shifts up a gear and goes into like full on shred mode, and his picking technique totally changes. That's something to be aware of when you're playing at these like ludicrous speeds. Your picking technique's probably going to be different from it is when you're playing things slowly. And if you pop the video back, you can see there when that gear shift happens, when he goes off into his kind of shred mode. But it's just kind of proven that he can articulate the notes perfectly clearly if he wants to as well, kind of quashing my previous comment to the side. So that was cool. When he was coming up the fretboard there, he was using a sequence, and then instead of keeping that exact rhythm, he kind of sped it up and he messed about with the rhythm. So while he was still using the same shape going up through the scale, because he started playing a different rhythm, it was more interesting to listen to. And also speeding it up, it helps build up to this bit here When he got up here, it hit some cool notes and he was doing this interesting kind of like chromatic trill, so let's dive back into that. I suppose as well, because he looks like he's a pretty big dude, the 3-note per string pentatonics, which are a bit of a stretch for most of us, you can check them out with the eye up there, probably not exactly a walk in the park for him, but definitely easier than for your mere mortal like myself. I'd be really curious as to why he started doing his vibrato like that, because it's incredibly effective, it's really distinctive. You hear that, you think Zakk Wylde, and particularly when he's resolving to one of those notes, it almost sounds like he's got a whammy bar or something, as if you know why he started doing it, or like why he decided to kind of develop that technique. I don't know if it's I've definitely heard Steve Lukather talking about a kind of wide vibrato thing that he got from someone else as well. Off on a tangent there, I apologise. But yeah, if you know why he started doing that, it'd be cool to find out. You can see there as well when he's got licks like that, they use a lot of economy picking, so he's using moving in the same direction as much as possible. This pretty much ties into the pick slanting thing I was talking before, the downward pick slanting. I don't think I'd articulated that it was economy picking, so if you want to get to these real rip-roaring speeds with licks like that, economy is your best friend. It's not just the width of his vibrato, it's the accuracy as well. He's returning, like he's going from the pitch, from the note up to the pitch he's vibrating to and back, with just a really great degree of accuracy. It's just makes it sound just badass, I think is the word. Cool, we had a lick that we had that lick kind of before, so I'll have to listen out to his playing more and see if that's something that pops up. I don't think this backing track is exactly showcasing Zakk Wylde's kind of the most kind of distilled version of Wylde you can. I think it's maybe more of a modern rock thing, so I might have to check out some stuff with him playing over his own tunes a bit more to get a better feel. But it's not to say he's outside of his comfort zone, but I feel they could have probably given him a backing track that would have complemented his kind of, you know, go-to style a bit more. That was cool. That looked like it was a little cheeky tapped harmonic on the top. Cool, so I went back there. I think it's a tap rather than a tapped harmonic. Yeah, what I was trying to get at there is there's a lot more to his playing. Like, we've mainly seen the things here of like pentatonics kind of shredding through them using his economy pick and the wide vibrato. Some really nice licks and cool ideas in here, but there's a lot more to his playing from what I don't know a huge amount of his playing, but I know enough to know there's a lot more than that. So it would be nice to see a kind of Emgtv give him a backing track where he could explore the different stuff a little bit more. Having said that, ferocious performance, not complaining, and ferocious is the word that I'm using here. You would not want to follow this man, like you not want to take a solo after him, would you? Jeez, oh. As a final side note here, I'm assuming that he keeps his nails long on his right hand so he can use them to pick the strings with, because you get like a much clearer, I would say arguably better sound if your nails are long enough to pick the strings with them than using your fingers. I always keep mine short because I don't like having long nails, so I'm kind of forced to use my fingers if I'm playing finger style rather than my nails. I do think the nails produce a better tone though. Okay, so one of the things I want to look at is one of the licks that uses economy picking. This is a really good foot in the door type one, and it's a lick he used quite a lot as well. So the way you want to do it is hold your pick kind of pointing down this way. This is going to make life much easier for you. And the lick in question went... So you want to hit this with a downstroke, the 5th fret on the E. Hit it with an up, and we're going to hammer on 7, put it off to the 5th. We're going to play the 8th fret on the B with a down, and then the 5th fret on the E with a down again. So... down, up, hammer, pull off, down, down. And he played a pretty cool E Dorian lick using this trick and just moving it up. So it went something like... So slow that down. So we're basically using this trick, repeating it. Repeat as many times as you want to, I suppose. And then on the last time you're sweeping down through the B and the E strings, and then you're going to hit that 7th fret, slide up to 9th, and bend it semitone. So that says bending the 6th to the flat 7, that's why it's in Dorian. Return it to pitch, and then... So basically this, but just up a tone. So you got the 7, the 9, down to the 10, back up to the 7, and then he went down to here to finish it up. And one time, a bit slower again. Another interesting thing was some of the fingerings for his licks, which to me are quite alien. So there's one where he went like this. So we're just going 10 to 12 on the B, 8, 10, 12 on the E, back down. So it's an 8-note group. So this just feels a bit awkward to myself. I'll try and get a bit of speed on it. So I don't particularly like that fingering. The way I would always play that would be there. I just find that way more, I don't know, intuitive than... But it's a totally valid way to play it, it's just something I find a bit difficult. What I couldn't work out exactly here is if he would be picking it with economy. So say he was going down, 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 up, down, up, down. Then you're going to have to do an up to get onto this note. And then you've got a down, up, and then your economy is ruined. So he maybe doesn't use quite as much economy picking as I might have thought he did. Which again is just a great reason to break down the things you see, because it can sometimes dispel some of the myths or ideas that you've built up about a particular player. Having said that, there are some licks and aspects of his playing where he's really using the economy picking. So even if you take something simple like a little lick like that, a little run, where we're just going 12, 14 on the D, then 12, 14 on the G, repeat that, and then go up to 12, 15 on the B. If you downward pick slant, so holding the pick this way, and just using, essentially you have to use economy picking because you're using 2 hits per string really. You got down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. If you try to do it slant the pick this way, right, you run into a barrier straight away. And it can be really subtle, you don't have to be as exaggerated like this, it can just be a wee bit, but the way Zakk Wylde holds his pick is really like this, and it just makes these licks. If I could play it cleaner, one more goal. As you know, it's clean enough to serve the purpose, but it can make licks like that an awful lot easier to play. Cool, hopefully you enjoyed that. Other than the tone, I mean, that was just a tour de force and just blistering guitar playing, so no complaints from myself. If you want to check out more of these, the playlist is there. Hit subscribe to keep up to date with the channel, do the notifications and all that good stuff. But yeah, take it easy guys, have a good one. That will suffice.